Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. Okay, today on the Observe Day podcast, we're joined by Jenna Udenberg, an accessibility educator, disability activist, and award-winning community leader whose story redefines what resilience and advocacy look like. Diagnosed with juvenile arthritis at just 7 years old, Jenna has used a manual wheelchair since the age of 8, but she's turned what many would call a limitation into a platform for empowerment. As a Bush Fellow, author of Within My Spokes, and founder of Above and Beyond with You, Jenna's life work centers on building inclusive communities and pushing conversations around accessibility far beyond compliance checklists. This episode honors National Disability Employment Awareness Month, a time to celebrate the contribution of workers with disabilities and spotlight the leaders reshaping workplace to be truly inclusive. Jenna's journey reminds us that accessibility is not just about ramps or policies. It's about humanity, empathy, and the courage to keep moving forward one spoke at a time. Welcome to the podcast, Jenna.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you know, you were diagnosed with juvenile arthritis at 7. How did that shape your view of independence, resilience, and purpose growing up?
Yeah, so when you become disabled at a young age, I always say that I'm very thankful for that because I didn't know any different, right? Like I was running and jumping and doing all the things. I love being outside. I love fishing. I loved hanging out with my dad. Doing all the tomboy kinds of things as a little girl. Um, And the story goes that one day the family went skating on an outdoor skating rink and I had fallen. And the next morning I woke up getting ready for school and in the bathtub and all of a sudden the bubbles broke and my knee came to the top and my right knee was twice the size of my left knee and I screamed for my mom because it scared me as a little girl getting
Yeah,
ready for first grade. And went to the doctor and the one doctor thought I had water on the knee and the next doctor said, "Nope, I think you have arthritis," which led to another local doctor, which led to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota to give me my final, diagnosis. And so, having a support system of an amazing family and learning what chosen family was later on in life and adopted family and, all the different ways that we get support, um, truly shaped me and shaped my story and shaped my drive for advocacy. So I was taught at a young age to always leave spaces better than you find them. And now I want to not only leave spaces, but I want to leave humans better than how I found them. And I hope in turn they want to do the same with me.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. In the timeline of things, what was the moment or age or period, whatever it is, where advocacy became more than just personal? You decided to use your story to create change for others, and not just it was beyond you just uh, taking what happened as a stepping stone for you, and it went beyond you just saying, okay, this is making me tough and all that. It's to a point where you're like, okay, now I'm going to use my own story, my what happened to me, to help others.
Yeah, great question. I would say very early stages, very immature stages would have been in high school. There were several younger students that were diagnosed with juvenile arthritis in my community and in the region. And I had been connected with people that were older and around the same age as me in those key pivotal times of life, like middle school and high school. In college, I started taking on some leadership roles through my university in what they called the Access Center back in the early 2000s. But I would say I really got into my own as a 2020 Bush Fellow. So, um, being able to invest in myself, to take the time to sit with my story, to sit with the lived experience. Growing up in rural Minnesota on beautiful Lake Superior, the accessibility into disability culture and community is very limited. Where if you live in metro areas, there's just better chances of meeting other people that have similar or different disabilities than you, similar or different lived experiences. Not to say that there's not disabled people in rural Minnesota, because there is, but the opportunities and the infrastructure and the activities and the adapted sports world, it's just different. There's less access to those types of things. But as a Bush fellow, unfortunately, it happened during, the world pandemic and everything shutting down. And my intent with my fellowship was to travel and go to Sweden, the most
Yeah.
accessible country in the world, and go to Berkeley, California. I wanted to wheel on the streets and in the paths that those that have gone before me in advocacy and activism had wheeled, seeing all the things that you just can read about in books or seeing on the amazing documentary of Crip Camp. Like, I wanted to be in those spaces and meet those people that are still with us, or, maybe those that worked with those that have gone on before us. Um, but, the world took a different turn and I took a different turn. And so I used that chance to write my memoir. And so taking that deeper dive, finding those next levels of healing and freedom, right? And some of my story I still don't feel comfortable in sharing because it's not just my story, but it's my family story. And whether it's my family of origin story or my chosen and adopted families, um, I still share a lot. I'm still an open book, but I am also being respectful of the fact that, my parents' story is my parents' story and my sibling story is my sibling story, and those kinds of things. Um, and it's a big responsibility, right? I think I've been an advocate, especially a self-advocate, since age 7 when I was diagnosed. But you just kind of bumble along and
Yeah.
and try to find mentors in those spaces and places. Um, but there's just so many aspects because, disability isn't something that just happens in the seclusion, right? Disability is a beautiful, natural thing that just happens in life. And so many people are living with disabilities in brand new ways, right? The medical world is advancing every day. Um, and there's just, I don't know, there's so much diversity within the disability community because you can join that minority group at any time, right? Um, Anybody can be in an accident in the next moment. Anybody can get a disease in the next moment. Anybody can grow old enough in order to experience disability. And so the work is never done, right? The
Yeah.
stories keep going and keep going and keep going. And that's what I love about it. And yet sometimes that's what gets to be a bit much. So in my college years, I had to step away from continuing that community leadership journey just to take care of my own self, take care of my medical needs and those kinds of things. So I'm so glad that I found my way back. Even though it took a pandemic to end my music education career, I'm glad that I found the career of accessibility educator.
Yeah. Oh. Um, uh, your time as a music educator, um, how has that experience influenced how you approach accessibility and communication?
Oh, it has transformed how I look at things. And when you're an educator, you just think that everybody thinks that way, right? But now that I'm in the nonprofit world and in the business world and in sitting down at many different state and regional agencies and business and all of these different worlds are intersecting. I realize that educators are a very different breed. And so that's what I love about my nonprofit Above and Beyond with You, because currently, every board member has some connection to the education world, whether they're retired teachers, retired paraprofessionals, retired administrators, current school occupational therapists. Like, so I love when education can be a part of it because we don't
Yeah,
know what we don't know. And if we're not given a
exactly.
yeah, and if we're not given a safe space to mess up, then we don't learn, right? Then we learn how to put that facade on instead of learning how to be authentic and be like, you know what? I just said something stupid. I'm sorry. Like, help me do better. Like, forgive me. Let's move on. Teach me the new thing. Um, and I'm learning a lot about disability community and culture because, like I said, I didn't get a chance to truly be immersed in it growing up. And so I love being in these spaces and learning and not just always teaching, but learning together.
Yeah, it gives an unfair perspective that just towards saying things as an educator. Uh, one of the things you often say is You say we're more than just a checklist.
Hmm.
What does true accessibility mean to you in today's world?
Ooh, that's a loaded question in today's world.
Take your time. Take your time. Take your time. I
Yeah.
noticed you drank some water before I asked the question. Weird coincidence. uh,
Right. Gotta
uh,
quench the thirst before doing this one. Yeah. So I love the Americans with Disabilities Act, right? It gives accessibility to all disabled people in public spaces that has federal funding somehow attached to it, right? And so I love the law. I wouldn't be where I am today without it, including, IDEA, including Section 504, all these things that give disabled Americans the same rights, the same civil rights as non disabled folks. The part that's the struggle is that the Americans with Disabilities Act is the largest unfunded mandate the American government to date has put in place. So all of these spaces and places that need to meet code have no way of funding to come up to code, especially
yeah.
in rural America where, the infrastructure is decades and decades, if not hundreds of years old. And so that's why Above and Beyond with You came into being because our goal eventually, I mean, we're only in our third year, so we're building the
Oh,
plane as we're flying
congratulations.
it, shall we say?
Yeah.
Right? And so our goal eventually is to be able to, help fill some of those gaps or make those connections. And so what I've been learning is like so often, especially in the travel industry, and not just to pick on them, right? In any industry and even in our own human psychology, right? If we're given a checklist, we know that we need to do this, 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 and this, right? We make a shopping list to go to the grocery
Yeah.
store. Some of us are type A and we put it in, the order of the layout of the store or of priority or of expense or who knows, right? We categorize things however our brains make sense. And so the ADA is very similar. And so in conversations I've had, especially in these last 3 years, it's very interesting because so often people look at their business or their service and they're like, well, we can get them in the door. And
Yeah.
so then it's so interesting 'cause it's like, "But we have a ramp, but we have a power door so people can get in." And then often I'm in the space and then I go, "Okay, great, but now what? Can I shop in your space? Can I use the restroom in your space? Can I sit at the board table? Can I," like dot, dot, dot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And people are always like, "Oh, I didn't think about that." And so then part of me is like, "Is that the educator hat that's going," like, "Hmm, how did you not think that a human would need to use the restroom in your place of business or in your office setting or wherever your space is, or even in your home, right?" I called a resort one time for my fellowship and I said, "So I'm a wheelchair user. I would like to rent out an accessible space every month for a long weekend."
Yeah.
"Awesome, we've got this portable ramp and we can put it up
Yeah.
house
Ramp.
on our
Ramp.
property that you want to go in." And I'm like,
Okay. Okay.
"Awesome." So then is your kitchen and is the main bathroom and the main, bedroom all on the main floor? Like, I know your houses are multi-tier. "Oh, no, there's a flight of stairs to get to the bedroom." "Oh,
Ooh.
no, there's not a bathroom." "So why do you have a ramp that can get to every part of the property?" And they're like, "But but it's accessible, you can get in." And I'm like, "Okay, I can get in, but I can't live life," right?
Yeah.
So to your question, unfortunately, those are real stories, right?
Yeah.
We bought the lie that just checking these boxes gets us compliance, and it might get you compliance with the fact that, you completed this list. But if another human being can't come in your space, can't be safe, can't have their dignity, can't do all the basic needs that any other human can do in that same space, then you're not committed to it. And so that's a lot of what we talk about. Like, are you just trying to be compliant to check the box and put the sticker on your shirt or put the badge on your business? Or are you really committed to the fact that you want everyone who's a visitor, who's a local, who's, whatever contingency it is, you want their business, you want that repeat business, more importantly. And I think there's so much misinformation out there. Everyone thinks that, the disability population is poor. Now, granted, do many of us live at poverty or below? Absolutely. Fortunate not okay. And yet there's still a large part of the population that doesn't. So I believe it's like $42 billion a year the disability community alone spends in travel.
Yeah, I mean, beyond just the money aspect, right? It's
Mhm.
the one of the key things I mentioned while I was reading your intro is beyond just the checklist, the humanity aspect, right? And if someone had a kid that had a disability, and that would, it's, I feel like what people do is, it's like, when you build a product and you're like, okay, how do we make this thing compliant? We just paint a color, maybe blue color over it, and you're like, oh yeah, we're compliant, rather than asking ourselves, okay, what are the things we need to put in place such that it becomes accessible, and it influences the way we design the product, rather than, oh yeah, that's true, anybody can just put ramp, get someone to put ramp, and then yeah, we're accessible.
Yeah, and so often, especially in those examples, we're called in after the fact. Right? Like,
Yeah.
your new business is, like, just in the brainstorming process, or a new building or a new hotel or whatever it is, right? And then I come wheeling along like, "Hey, when can we schedule that meeting to chat about, let me look at your upcoming architecture things, or just your basic drawings." "Oh, no, 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 not yet. That's phase 4, 5, 6. We'll get a hold of you when
Yeah.
4, 5, and 6 come." And sometimes they do. And then I look at it and I'm like, okay, but there's not a big enough turn radius here. Oh, but this bathroom's all the way over here. Oh, but your elevator now, these people have to. Oh, but your parking's over here. Oh, you didn't
Yeah.
think about parking? you know? And then it's like, oh, well, thanks for the feedback, but we're already on step 8.
Oh, so the
And so it's
feedback
already
was
done.
just official stuff. Let it not look like we didn't consult someone while we were doing it. It's not like we actually needed your feedback for anything.
Right. And then I go, well, that's why I asked you at phase 1 to have the sit down to figure out how do you make it along the way? And then so often everybody's like, well, we can do it after it's built. And I'm like, but now you're going to spend at least 2 to 3 times or more of what it would have cost to do it from the beginning.
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Because
Yeah.
retrofitting is always more expensive. And some of it we get a lot of requests too, like, well, can you fund this expense? Can you fund a power door for us? Can you fund those kinds of things? And so often the disability community, and I'm sure other minority groups, have gotten well, you should just educate the majority. Like, that should just be the thing you do for free. You should volunteer. You should share your story all the time, and you should do it for free. And that's just not how it goes, right? Like, if you're truly committed to accessibility, you're truly committed to being inclusive, to being equitable, to all the good things, so that way your entity is representative of the community in which it's in. That takes planning. That takes that intentionally being a part of your business plan. That takes figuring out how that helps the bottom line. And the reality is I would say, in my experience, the disability community is one of the most loyal communities there are. Because if your needs are met, you feel safe, you feel welcomed, you feel seen and valued, you're going to come back to that spot every time. You're going to spread it on social media. You're going to spread it by word of mouth. And not
Yeah.
only you as a disabled person, but the people that love you, right? The people that you hang out in that coffee shop with, the people that get to see all of you, because you don't have to be thinking 12 steps ahead of, like, "Oh,
Oh
if I have
yeah, the
this."
stairs. I'm approaching the stairs now. Oh.
Right, or I wanna have this coffee, but I know in an hour and
Like
a
that,
half I'm
and
gonna
you're
have
like,
to go to the
nah,
bathroom.
I killed
So,
that appetite.
like.
Nah, 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 it's
Right.
not worth it.
Right, so
Uh,
then you're like, "Oh, I can't really be me, so now I'm just gonna have water," and now I'm all, like, thinking in my head about all these things, and I'm not present
yeah,
because my basic needs aren't being met. And it's so sad because we do it so often. And I was challenged early on by one of my board members of, like, "Jenna, you're too passive about these things." And I'm like, "Well, I've had to be, right?" Like, I was a little girl in a very non-accessible space. The rugged North Shore is the rugged North Shore. And um you just learn that you get more with honey than you get with vinegar. But sometimes you have to give vinegar because otherwise people aren't going to listen.
You talked about why you're addressing accessibility being more than just a checklist. You approached, you made some suggestions of things people could do. For me, I'm curious, right? Is there an approach, right? Or probably, I don't know how to call it. It's beyond perspective because this is not just, this is an um, active we've gone beyond passive now. When the active stage, that people could corporate businesses, every time people hear businesses, they're always thinking of, oh, the big guys, the guys that are doing multi-million. I mean, I'm talking about businesses, houses, and yeah, houses. Yeah, it's just sort of that, the houses, because most of the time people with their building houses like, I don't have no, there's nobody in my family that has disability. And there's one thing you mentioned at the very beginning of the episode. You said if we live old along, if we live old enough, we get to a point where disability, and it happens. You see people build these duplexes with stairs, and when they get old, nobody wants to climb the stairs anymore. And they're like, well, but you could have thought of that when you were building the house, and it's just clear that nobody, like, it's not really there. Nobody really is even thinking of that in terms of uh, uh, the building, the organization of the places. So, what would you recommend as a better approach?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, like you alluded to, like be thinking with forethought, right? Don't just think of what your life is currently. You don't know who your next friend is going to be. You don't know who your next in-law is going to be. You don't know what's going
Yeah,
to happen with your parents or your children and friends, right? Like I am so limited until I was writing my memoir. I didn't even think about it, but so many of my relationships that are super deep to me and near and dear are the places that I can not just get into their home, not just have a meal, but I can hop out of my chair and hang out on a couch like they all do. I can get to the restroom. I can sleep over, right? Like there are so many memories I didn't get to create as a child because America, and especially rural America, wasn't accessible in the late 80s, early 90s. And, we didn't know any better. So, but now we do. So the biggest thing is like now that we do, now we must do better. And so that
yeah,
comes from, not just homeowners, but it comes through contractors, it comes through architects, it comes through elected city
yeah,
officials, county officials. Like, what are your ordinances and why? Why are we not having more ordinances of like all doors should just be 32 inches or more? Like, why don't we just say that? Because then if it is, that's how it is,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That's how it is. Yeah, we don't have to specially design for for accessibility and inclusivity. It's just the way it is. You don't have to like go out of your way to say, okay, how do we make it accessible?
Right. And then it's accessible for everyone where when I again was a kid or even, even in the last couple of decades as well, as a young adult, there's still tokenizing, right? Like, oh, well, Jenna's important to us. We want Jenna to come. So therefore, we're going to meet Jenna's needs, but we might not meet other disabled people's needs or Jenna's needs equal all disabled people's needs, right?
Yeah,
And, or if it's an event and then it's like, I'm just like everybody else. I have a very busy, overly packed schedule. I get sick from time to time. So don't make one event, one space, one thing accessible just for one person, right? If you universally design it and you truly want people from disability community and culture to attend, then we can. And don't take it to heart if someone doesn't show up. And then they always make an assumption as well, like that you can see that someone is disabled. We can't. There are
yeah, we
many,
can.
many
Yeah,
invisible or not seeable
yeah,
disabilities that unfortunately get overlooked, not fought for, not seen, not accommodated because everybody typically sees a manual wheelchair, a power chair, or a walker, or a white cane, or hearing aids, or ASL interpretation, right? Like there are other things that people can just automatically see to know that there is some difference or some disability. So it's
well,
complex and yet in some ways it's just so it should be simple and easy, right? Wisdom. Like if you If I want you to come, I know I'm gonna do this, 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 and this. Well, why
Yeah.
shouldn't the world also know, like, hey, we want Jenna to come, so we're gonna do this, 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 and this.
Yeah. One of the things, I'm looking at the time. Well, I just love for you to touch on that briefly, and that is, uh, what are some of the misconceptions? We've talked about buildings, but what are some of the misconceptions you've noticed employers still have about, hiring people with disability?
Oof. A lot of it is again just thinking that we don't have skills or talents that our non-disabled counterparts do. That we are sue happy people, so we're a liability. That we are not loyal or we're not consistent at showing up for work. Or that we're not worth the amount of pay that our non-disabled people are. And it's so frustrating to me, and I catch myself still because when you feel like you always have to assert yourself in order for people to take you at your word or to think that you're of worth or to give you respect or dignity, um a lot, especially in this last year, I've caught myself being like, yeah, well, I have a master's in education, and it's like, why do I have to say that, right? Like, why do we have to throw titles out? Why do we have to throw
Yeah.
our levels of education out? Like, that's gross. And so it's like, you know um yeah, and I have a good friend of mine, and she has her doctorate and she's a power chair user. So it's just like, but people would just be like, well, why would we hire you? Or the flip side is like, oh, you're too expensive. And it's like, no, like, let's just have curious conversations. And the flip side of it too, um, when I was not in my last school district, my sister was a teacher and they were building a new building. And I said, well, we always think about the students. When you're designing this building, please be that voice so that it's accessible for an administrator, for the school nurse, for a teacher like
Yeah.
myself. And at that time, I didn't know I'd come back and actually teach at my alma mater. But that all happened, right? And so we never think of the other side of the desk. So same thing, like if you're a small business owner and you're designing your point of sale or your entrance, you're probably designing it from the who's coming in, who's
Yeah.
going to be buying something from me. Not who's sitting behind that cash register, not where does my employee need to park in order to enter the employee entrance? Where does my employee who uses a chair, uses a cane, uses a walker, whatever, use a restroom, eat, all the things. And so a lot of times I think number one, they don't want to have a curious conversation because they're afraid or they're insecure in the way that they use language. They don't get to know their people. And a lot of times it's really hard because I don't know if I myself have, but I know that other disabled folks have hidden their disability, whether it's at the beginning of their application process, whether it's an interview that's on, Zoom. Like right now, if I didn't have my handyman on my shirt, you would never know that I'm a wheelchair user.
Yeah.
You don't see it in this square that we're in together.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
I
and
think
it's
I
just,
think part of the reason is people with disability, they don't want the job application, the fact that they have they have a disability to affect them getting the job. And so
mhm,
from experience, which you wouldn't blame them, right? They've applied to job, and you
right,
notice when the interview is going on, and they're like, oh, so you're on wheelchair. You're like, yeah, and the atmosphere just changed, and you're like, oh, somebody that was just like greeting you warmly before, and you're like, oh, so you're wheelchair. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, okay. And you already know that nah, this interview is not. Let's just end it now.
yeah,
And so most of the times people just allow themselves to get a job, so that's when they get the job, and they're like, the something happens, then it becomes, oh, I wasn't given the job because I was sacked because of the disability, rather than the company can just pin up their lies and tell you that, oh well, you didn't qualify, right?
mhm,
And you and I know that that wasn't the case.
right. Well, and then even for another teaching job I applied for too, it was like, can you walk a mile? Can you lift 50 pounds? Can you carry blah, blah, blah? I'm like,
Wow, teaching? Are you
right.
teaching
I'm like,
people
I
how
know
to
it's
lift weights?
right. I'm like, I know it's music and the
Are you a
tubas can
gym
be heavy
teacher?
or whatever, right? But it's like, I can put a 50-pound tuba on my lap and wheel it across the band room. or I can pick up a small child and give them, CPR, or, Heimlich
Yeah.
maneuver or whatever, right? So it's just interesting the things that we put as categories of what people need to be able to do a job, even though the actual day to day of a job
Yeah. Doesn't
has
involve
nothing
those
to do with
things.
a
Yeah.
criteria. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, for National Disability Employment Awareness Month too, is like, what are your hiring practices? What do your handbooks say? And not only just like, what do they say in the text, but what do they say between those lines, right? What's
Yeah.
implied or what's implied, not implied.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's very huge. And, like I said earlier too, it's like, does your workforce reflect your community? Because if it's all one part of your community, well, then you're not meeting the needs of your whole community. So how does that need to change? How does that need to look?
How do you handle moments when advocacy feels heavy, when
Mm.
change seems too slow?
I try to find something to laugh about or something to be creative with.
Yeah.
Um, because if it gets too heavy, if it gets too serious, if it gets too drudgery, if it gets too complex, then we're not helping anyone, right? And it doesn't mean that you're always doing the let's take lemons and make lemonade kind of mentality either. Like, we need to be real, we need to be authentic and honest about what's going on in our world,
Yeah.
about the barriers that we're facing, about the barriers that were once gone and now they're getting thrown right back up at us. And it's hard, and sometimes you just gotta practice really good self-care. You have to find your safe people where you can, say the things you need to say that maybe aren't super, wanted at the time with the mainstream population. You have to find your safe space where when you just need to take a nap, you can take a nap. When you need to go have coffee somewhere, you can have coffee. Um, and then, you just gotta figure out what's the next right step. And
Yeah.
sometimes, for me in this work, I've had to sit back and be like, even though I really want to address hospitality issues, I can't because there's not an open door yet, and I just keep hitting that same resistance. And it's not that I wheel away and I stay away, but I don't exert full energy on that space because they're just not ready for transformative change yet. So
Yeah.
you find those pockets of space where there's like-minded people and like-minded, curious people that actually want to change. And it might take longer, right? I know for me, I am a really slow habit creator. So why should I expect anything different out of other folks that I work with, right?
Mm.
Like, take us all where we're at. But also ask those hard conversations and tell those hard stories for people to go, oh, right. I didn't think about that I could hire a disabled person to run my cash register at my restaurant, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. How can listeners learn more about the work you do and also connect with you? You mentioned the organization above and beyond with you, right?
Mhm.
And then
Yes.
your book within my spokes. That's it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Where can we learn more about these projects and books?
Yeah, you can head to our website, above and beyond with you, the capital U.org. And we are also found on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And within my spokes, you can buy anywhere books are sold, including Amazon. And there are links on our website to get that. And then also on the website, you'll see updated articles of Local View from 4 Foot 2, where I write every other week for our local paper, but put it in blog style on our website. So you can hear different perspectives of current life, not only here on the North Shore of Minnesota, but just in general and where we're finding ourselves.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for um, accepting my invitation and for just chatting with me. It's been an absolute delight. What am
Yeah,
I
same here.
saying? It's been an absolute delight to chat with you. At the point in time, I felt as though I was like, "Oh, what's happening? Am I having a stroke?" Thank you so much, Jenna. That's all I wanted to say. The short version is thank you. The long version, I don't even know what was happening. The words were just escaping me. Yeah,
That's okay. That happens
yeah,
to be a lot. So yeah, you're
yeah,
in good company.
yeah. I'll stop doing. That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.